Okay, so folks, I'm just going to get going. If you want to just type into the chat window as you join us, just type into the chat window where you're joining us from, approximately. I'll get going. I'm going to share my screen and just go through some PowerPoint slides to introduce you to the course, and then we'll do we'll go through some of the work previous students have done. I'll ask Jennifer here to talk to you about her experience on the course, and we'll take any questions that you have after all that. So as I'm going through the slides, if you type questions into the chat window, I'll deal with them as I go along if I can. But I'm going to share my screen now. Can you see that okay? Okay. So just to make sure you're all here for the right course, so this is we're talking about the MSc in User Experience Design in IADT. The course is, I think we started in 2015. At the time, there was no other postgrad courses in user experience design in Ireland. So we saw an opportunity there and we developed the course, and it's been running ever since. So one of the advantages we have is we've been running the course for quite a while, and we have some experience about what we're doing. The overall aim of the course is to try and give students on the course the skills and the knowledge and the competencies they need to work in a variety of different roles within the field of user experience design. So what I might ask you to do is, in the chat window, do you want to just let me know, like, what's your background? Like, are you working in graphic design? Are you already working in UX design? Are you doing research? Are you a UI developer? Do you have a psychology background, a business background? If you want to just type into the chat window and give me an idea of who I'm talking to. So we assume we kind of assume that you have some experience. So when you apply for the course, we ask you to submit a portfolio because we can't do everything. We can't cover everything from scratch. So we assume a certain amount of prior knowledge, but it doesn't have to be a huge amount. A basic understanding of an application like Figma helps, you know, and if you've created some prototypes, that helps. It's not a requirement, but if you haven't done that before, we kind of encourage people to do maybe a course over the summer, so that they're not hitting the ground completely green when the course starts in September. Okay. So I see a couple of people there saying you've done a boot camp in UX. That's exactly the sort of thing that we would suggest people do, because otherwise the learning curve at the beginning can be a little bit too steep. So within IADT, we actually have 3 programs around UX design. The one we're talking about here is the MSc in UX design. It's a 2-year program. The program basically consists of 5 modules. You do 3 modules in the first year, and you do 2 modules in the second year of the course. The first module that you do is called the Fundamentals of UX Design, and that basically the purpose of that is to teach people how the UX design process works. So we do a project from start to finish. We do a little bit of user research, some prototyping, and some testing at the end. And we use paper prototyping so that we can do the prototyping quickly. And the purpose of that module is just to discuss how the UX design process works and what the different steps in it are, and to talk about the iterative nature of it, and to give everybody a little bit of experience, if they haven't got it already, in each step of the process. You can do that module as a separate certificate. So each year we would run that course once or twice, and then people who do that certificate course sometimes then go on and they join the master's program as well. Okay, so that certificate course is kind of like a lot of the UX bootcamp courses that you can find online now. The second module that we do is the user research and interaction design module, and this basically looks at how to do user research in more detail. So we look at, how do you do surveys? How do you do interviews? How do you do diary studies? How do you do a competitive analysis? And it's not just the mechanics of it. It's kind of like, well, how do you writing a good survey is not easy. Maybe Jennifer will talk to you about that later on. Okay. If people want to go out and get a survey about, people's attitude towards, online shopping for clothes. Okay. It's not easy to come up with a good survey that will actually give you the information that you're looking for. It can take a bit of time to actually get a set of questions that will give you the information you're looking for. So we look at how do you do that? If you're interviewing people, how do you do that? If you're testing people, how do you do that? If you're doing user testing, how do you decide what tasks you're going to use? You've got a product and you want to test it. How do you decide what tasks you're going to use to test it, so that the information that you get from the testing gives you the answers to the questions that you want to address? In that module also, we do an interaction design project, and this is a wireframing project. And usually what you will do is you will do some user research on we will pick a project topic. In the first module you work in teams. I forgot to say that. And in this second module you also work in teams of 3 usually. And in the second project, you will pick a theme for your project, and then you'll do some user research around that, and then you'll also design a solution to that. Using some kind of a wireframing tool. Figma is the one that is most popular at the moment. The first module, the fundamentals of UX design, that runs from mid-September to the end of October. The interaction design, the user research and interaction design module runs from the beginning of November to the end of January. And then the third module that you do in the first year of the course is psychology, information architecture, and visual design. And this kind of looks at aspects of design, looks at the different things that affect the way you the quality of a design. So interaction design, we look at the flow of how a course goes from, how an app goes from one screen to another, how the user flows from one screen to the next, and does that flow work well or not? But in the third module of the course, we then look at what elements of psychology affect all this. So how do people read stuff on the web? How does color affect people? How does topography affect people? How does layout affect the interaction design? We also look at what's known as information architecture. So on a lot of websites, there's a lot of information. How do you structure the information and tag it and catalog it in such a way that it's easy to find? And those 3 modules, each module you do a project. So in that third module, you will do a project, and you will have to pick a project, pick a topic again, and design a solution. Try to, pick a website and then say, okay, I'm going to redesign some aspect of this website. But you're going to look into the psychology of it, the information architecture, the visual design, and you're going to try and see what's good and bad about this and what can be improved. And that kind of brings you to the end of the first year of the MSc. And that third module runs from February to the end of April. The fourth, the second year, of course, consists of two modules. There's a UX design strategy and futures module, and then there's a major research project module that you do. For the major research project, you need to come up with an idea for a project. And what we ask you to do is to write a proposal for a research project over the summer, and to submit it early in September, at the end of August or early in September. So to help you get going on that research proposal, we do a couple of classes in the May of the course, at the end of May, in the first year of the program, just to talk about what is a research proposal, how do you write research proposals, and then we let you off. We'll have a session where we discuss possible ideas, and off you go. You produce a research proposal, hand it in at the end of the summer. We will give you some feedback on that, and you hand in a draft of it at the end of the summer. We will give you some feedback on that, and then you hand in a final draft in mid-October. And then that is a project that you're going to work on for the next 6 months. So Jennifer, who will talk to you later on, is coming to the end of that project. Submission date will be in a couple of weeks' time. The other module then is the UX design strategy and futures. And this project this is basically about the future, and it's also about kind of project management stuff and leadership stuff. So what we do in this module is we ask you to imagine a problem and a solution to that problem that might be available, say, in 10 or 20 years' time. So what might we be able to do in 10 or 20 years' time? And given what you imagine, the technology that's available, how might you solve a problem that we face today using the state of technology in 10 or 20 years' time? Okay, so this is kind of like, it's a really interesting project. I think it gets a really good feedback from the students on it. As well as doing that project, we then also ask you to imagine, okay, well, imagine you were to lead a team of 20 or 30 researchers and UX designers who are actually going to build this project. How would you lead that team? What would your guiding principles be? How would you build a team? How would you lead them? What would your vision be? How would you ensure that you were able to design good products? Okay, that the products met the user's needs, but it also met business goals. So we try to get you to think about, what would it be like to be the leader of a UX team? Okay, so we're trying to get you to start thinking about that UX design strategy stuff, like how do you ensure UX design projects are successful? Because as a team leader, that's what your primary job is. Okay, so if you have any questions so far, just type them into the chat window and I'll try and answer them. Otherwise, I'm just going to move on. That's the basic structure of the course. So as I said, what do you do, like overall? What will you learn through doing those 4 modules? Each module you basically do, each of the 5 modules that you do a project in each module. Okay, we start off with a simple paper prototype, then we do a wireframe project, then we do a sort of a high fidelity design, Then we do a speculative design project, and then finally the major research project. This is a project that starts, early in October and finishes in April. And for that project, you will be assigned a supervisor. The major research project you do on your own, you'll be assigned a supervisor who will work with you. You'll meet them maybe once every 3 to 4 weeks, okay, and just talk about what's going on, okay. In the second year of the, I'll talk about how the course is structured in a moment. So the MSc, as I said, it's 4 modules. We also run a course, a postgrad diploma in UX design, but this is run over 2 years. In the first year, you just do the first 2 modules. And then in the second year, of course, you do the second 2 modules. So the postgrad diploma in UX design runs slightly slower. Okay. Students who do that course often then transfer over to the MSc, and they do the major research project module, and then they get an MSc. But the postgrad diploma in UX design, it's run in conjunction with Technology Ireland, the Software Skill Net in Technology Ireland, and you apply to do that course through the Software Skill Net. You don't apply to IADT, but we deliver the program. So that's what this course here in the middle is. So over the course of the 2 years, what you will learn is you learn how to do user research. You learn how do I do surveys, how do I do interviews, how do I do user testing, how do I do moderated, unmoderated user testing, how do I do diary studies, how do I do a competitor analysis, how do I analyze all the information I get back. So if I'm doing interviews, I get a whole load of text like or video recordings. How do I analyze that? If I'm doing surveys and I get a lot of numeric data back, how do I analyze that? From a design point of view, we learn about how do we do interaction design. We learn about how do we do visual design, graphic design. Okay. We'll also learn about content design, content strategy. How do we make sure that the content on the website is effective? Because people don't come to websites for the interactive bits. People come to websites for the content. So we got to make sure that the content we have in the websites serving its purpose. Information architecture is about how do we make sure people can find the content that they're looking for. So how do we ensure that if I'm looking for, information on how do I apply for housing assistance, okay? I go to a government website. How do I make sure that if I'm designing the website, how do I make sure that people coming to the website can find that information? So it's a lot about navigation, but it's also about search and how search engines on a website work and how we display the results of search engines. We look at mobile and desktop design, and we look at navigation on mobile and desktop also. So in prototyping, we start off with paper prototyping, then we will move on to wireframes, and then we'll do high fidelity prototyping where we're introducing color and topography. Testing, we will start off with desktop evaluation, heuristic evaluation of websites. We'll move on and look at user testing, moderated, unmoderated, face-to-face, remote testing. We look at how do we analyze the results of that. What kind of data do we gather? If you want to collect information about usability or user satisfaction, there's loads of different questionnaires that you can use. How do you decide which one you're going to use? So as well as all that stuff, we learn about psychology. Okay. So we learn about perception. How does color? How does topography? How do you design for people with visual or audio impairments, with mobile impairments, mobility impairments? We also look at, as I said earlier on, the UX strategy. What strategy do you use to make sure your UX projects are successful as a manager? Okay, and what are the emerging trends coming out? So now at the moment, like AI is a big thing. So, how do you design, how do you use AI in UX design projects and make sure that the users are getting a good experience? Okay. From an assessment point of view, there's no exams. Everything's continuous assessment. In each module, you will do a project, and then you will present the results of that project, and you will write it up. The first two modules, you do group work. The third module is individual work. And then in the fourth module, it's more group work. And then the final major research project, that's individual work. So there's a lot of group work, but there's also some individual work. It's all project-based learning, okay? And over the course of the program, we will be talking to you about how do you communicate the results of your research, because ultimately at the end of the major research project you need to write a mini thesis or a research paper documenting what you did. Okay, so there's also stuff in there around how do you communicate and defend the work that you do. Okay, so if you're in a design meeting and there's somebody presents, two different people present ideas for a design, how do you decide which one's best? If you're presenting a design idea, how do you say, well, this is my design idea? How do you defend it? Okay, how do you argue for your design idea over against somebody else's? And you can't just say, well, it's good because I did it. You need to be able to back it up with data, with facts, with evidence. So how do you do that? We have had students who are working in UX companies, UX teams already, and there's a potential there, like we're doing industry-linked projects. So we have had in the past companies proposing projects, and we will work with those companies on a project, or people will maybe take a project or something related to something that they're doing in their work, and they will do a project on some aspect of that. So in terms of delivery, the certificate course, it's not really the certificate course. It's really, this is just an introduction, and if you're not sure if the MSc is for you, if you want to commit to so much time and resources to doing an MSc, the certificate course is a good way of dipping your toe in. It runs for 6 evenings a week online, and then 3 Saturdays on campus. If you complete that module, well then when you come to do the MSc, you don't need to do that module again. You've already completed that. The Postgrad Diploma course, as I said earlier, this runs in conjunction with Technology Ireland. They subsidise the fee. The fee is €3,500 per year, and that's subject to change for next year. But they subsidise that by 25%. But you must work for a company who is affiliated to Technology Ireland to avail of that grant, and you apply through Technology Ireland software SkillNet. I can put a link in. This course, it's basically run 2 days a month. You'll do a Friday online, and then 2 weeks later you'll do a Saturday face-to-face, and then 2 weeks later a Friday online, 2 weeks later a Saturday on campus. So you do 2 days each month for about 6 months. It amounts to about 12 days per year, and you do that for 2 years. The MSc course, then we've taken the decision to run this course. We're going to change the way this course is delivered for next year. Previously, it was delivered 2 evenings a week, but we're going to change that so it's 1 evening a week from 6 until 9, and then 1 Saturday per month. Now, the evening classes are going to be online, and the one Saturday a month will be online, but you will have an option of doing that Saturday class in person. So basically what will happen is if I'm teaching that Saturday class, I will go into IADT and I will be in a classroom teaching the class. And I'll have a Teams session open so that people can join it remotely. Now I'll only be sitting in there if there's other people in there who want to have that sort of on-campus experience. If you want to do the course entirely online, you can. In the second year, the Wednesday evening classes will be from 7 to 9, and they only last for 8 weeks from September to November, mid-September to mid-November. And then in the second year of the course, you will be doing your major research project from mid-October through to the end of April, and you'll meet a project supervisor every 3 to 4 weeks. The fees for that course are €4,000 per year. In terms of entry requirements, you need to have a second-class honours degree or higher. So in terms of Irish qualification framework, it's a level 8 degree. If you don't have this, you can go to a recognition of prior learning application. And I can explain how that works if anybody needs me to. And we expect you to have, as I said earlier on, some prior experience in a related discipline. So if people haven't been working in UX or a related field like graphic design or product development, usually what we recommend them to do is maybe to do the certificate course first or to do some kind of UX bootcamp course. There's lots of them available online and prior to starting the course. And as examples of work, like, so, people, they go out, they do user research, they will then go and, document all this stuff. And probably the best way to show you this is to just go through some examples of work that students have submitted before. So this is a project that was done in the first module 2 years ago. So this is a paper prototype. It was to design an app that would allow people to get an idea of the CO2 footprint of stuff that they bought online. I think it was food shopping app, So basically it was done as a paper prototype, but then we used this app called Marvel so that you could load it into a mobile phone, So as you click on it, you can just go through a sequence of screens, do different things, okay? And it was basically just coming up with a flow for a product, okay? You'll remember doing this, Jennifer. Okay, and so to do this project, the students would have had to go out and say, okay, right, how do shopping apps work? How can we display information about CO2? The CO2 footprint of stuff that people buy, okay? How can we do it in a way that's user-friendly, that's not going to put people off? Because there's no point in designing an app that nobody wants to use. So it has to be done in a way that's user-friendly and acceptable. And then how do we test this? Okay, and that was a 6-week project. This would have gone through several iterations. They come up with a prototype, test it, and through testing it in class, students testing it on each other, they would find stuff that went wrong. You talk about it. The next module, Jennifer, I think this was one of yours, was a Leap Card app. Where did I have it? No, I didn't have that. Redesigning the Leap Card mobile phone app. Okay, so looking at the existing app, talking to people about going out and using that, developing personas. So there would have been a certain amount of user research done beforehand, and then you need to communicate the results of that user research to the people who are going to design it. So this is usually done through personas, customer journey maps, empathy maps. So how do you create those things? And then go through a design process where you have tasks, okay, and you get people to interact with your prototype, and then look at what feedback you get back, and then go back and do a redesign. Okay, so this project would have started off as a paper prototype and moving on to wireframes. The third module was then doing a visual design project, but also included inclusive design. So this was around, people reading journals online, academic journals online, but trying to do it in a way that helps people who had dyslexia or whatever. So there was various different screens in here that allowed you to adjust the letter spacing, the text size, the line spacing, and so on and so forth, so that the text could be easier to read with people who had difficulty reading stuff online. You could play around with fonts and stuff like that. Okay, you could record notes within it. Okay, as well as doing a desktop design, there was also mobile designs for it. The fourth module, we then had students doing research on speculative design. So this was a project. So trying to imagine, to save the world in 5 to 10 years time. And these students looked at dating apps in 10 years time and how AI would affect dating apps. And basically they did a whole load of research around, the way dating apps currently work and what AI could do at the moment, how AI might change the way dating apps work in years to come. Then they started building. They can't build this app, but they build an imaginary world. So they go through what's known as a world building exercise. And they build this imaginary world in which this dating app could be used. Okay, and basically they create some personas then to represent, the people you're designing for, come up with problem statements. But then in the design bit, they go through creating mood boards. People have done graphic design will know that they talk about the different types of technology that they're going to imagine are available. And then they start going through design flows and design iterations. And they end up with, an app that's incorporating elements of augmented reality and AI, so that when you meet somebody, on your phone, it's telling you all sorts of stuff about them, like way much more than what will be available at the moment. So you get stuff about their medical history and so on and so forth. And this was basically what they did. And then, as well as doing all that, they have to go and consider what are the ethical implications of all of this. And then they would have considered, okay, how am I going to build this? How am I going to manage a team that's going to build this product in a way that's going to be successful? How am I going to ensure that people will want to use this product? How am I going to ensure that it's going to meet my business goals? And then the final project was your major research project. And this was from last year. Somebody did a project basically around looking at how can we adapt a web browser to give us information about the carbon footprint of our browsing activities. Okay, so as we browse around the internet, we're using up a lot of CO2. And he wanted to figure out, okay, how can I adapt my browser so that it'll give me feedback on the environmental impact of my browsing activities and then allow me to reduce that impact. So he would have started off looking at, well, how do browsers work? What's the structure of a browser? He would have gone through some initial research, developed a research methodology, done some surveys and some interviews and some did interviews with subject matter experts. He would have done some initial observations of people using browsers. He built some personas, empathy maps based on his research. did some task flow analysis to figure out exactly what do people actually do when they're browsing and they're managing their settings and so on. And then he started looking at the different options that were available and the different ways in which feedback could be presented. And he looked at, he did guerrilla testing to test out some of these different ideas and see which was getting the most favorable response. And he eventually ended up producing a high fidelity prototype, which he then did some user testing with, and he got a whole lot of results, and he dried up his results in his conclusion and present his work in a research paper at the end. I'll stop sharing there. Have you any questions? Any questions? Type them into the chat window. So Jennifer, while folk are typing questions in, do you want to just give some feedback on your experience of the course? What have you found it?
Yeah, perfect. So I'm Jen. I'm a content designer for Dunn Stores. So that wouldn't have been possible without doing this course. And we have a lot of students now working in UX who got the job while doing the masters, which is amazing. The really good thing about the course is for each module, you have to write a blog post. So by the end of the course, will have built up a really strong portfolio that you can show in interviews. You can talk about the design processes you've learned, and you don't realize just how much stuff you've actually built up over the course of the 2 years. I have to say, doing the masters, it completely changes your way of thinking. You become more mindful of, I suppose, the whole world, and more empathetic. You become better at identifying needs and then designing the solutions to meet these needs and problems. And you end up seeing the world from so many other people's perspective, not just your own. Like, it does open your mind. It's the perfect balance between working individually and also as part of a team. So you build really good connections, and there's some workshops with some designers in the industry. I remember we had a guest speaker in, and she basically showed us the how to use Figma. I guess it's good if you have a baseline knowledge, but she gave us a lot of help with that. And yeah, I suppose the course really just covers every aspect of the design process, from, as John said, the initial research phase to then prototyping, testing, and then strategizing as well. So what have you learned, and how can you put that into a real world setting as part of a UX designer, as part of a team. So yeah, we did it online and in person, which is a really good mix. It's so handy, obviously, to be online and be in the comfort of your home, but it is also nice to actually chat to people as well in person, get feedback, and as I said, just build those connections with other designers. I think it helps you become a better designer as well. So hopefully that's everything, John.
Yeah. How did you? What about the workload?
Yeah. At times, yeah, the workload was it was busy, but I suppose that's the beauty of doing group work and work on your own, is that the group work is a little bit less heavy because there's a group of you. So you'll find you might do one group project, then the next one might be individual. So it comes in waves. But I had a full-time job, and so did everyone else in the course, and I think it worked okay for people. But yeah, it's a good balance of, as I said, working individually and as a team to take a bit of the pressure off, just off yourself.
Yeah. Okay. One of the things that Jen said there, I go back to again. We do get people from a design background coming to the course, and I'm always having the conversation with particularly when I'm doing the final project with students, because they kind of go, I've got this idea and it's a great idea. And I want to sort of create a prototype to design that, like, and I'm going like, okay, that's grand, like, but before you go and put loads of time into that, you got to go out there and make sure that other people think your great idea is a great idea, because otherwise you're just going to design something and then it could all fall on its face. And as Jen was saying, like, you know, you see things, you start to see things from other people's perspective. And this is really what UX design is all about. Like, it's not sort of taking, I've got this idea and it's a great idea. It's how do you validate that? How do you show, yeah, this is a good idea? And maybe not you, maybe there's a bunch of researchers do it or whatever, like, but we want to get away from that idea of, I've got a great idea, let's build this and then launch it and then see what happens. What we want to do is you want to find out as quick as possible, is this going to work or not? And this is kind of like what usability testing in UX design is all about. Okay, testing early. So the sooner you discover flaws, the sooner you can correct them, and the less money you'll spend. Okay, and this is the process that we're trying to teach people. We in the course of the 2 years, you'll do 4 projects. You'll do a certain amount of interaction design, like, but we can't make you an interaction designer just by doing this course, because there's other stuff that you do as well. So this is why it's useful if you have some kind of prior knowledge of interaction design tools like Figma before you start. But we do get people who come to the course and they focus, they basically come, they want to be user researchers. That's what they want to do. Okay. So just going to some of the questions. So let's see. I will stick the a PDF for the presentation into the chat window at the end. Do we do anything related to SEO? No, not really. You know, we will talk about how do search engines work and how do you display the results of search engines. We will talk about the importance of web analytics in terms of finding out how people are using your websites. But we don't really do stuff around SEO in terms of how do I improve you know, my rankings on the search engine. Is it possible to take the course if you live in Germany? Yes, you can do the entire course online. You need to, if English isn't your first language, you need to submit a certificate of English language proficiency. The levels that are required, you'll find that on the page for the course. Let me just look it up here very quickly. What you need is, oh, I can't get it. It's somewhere on our website. You'll find out. If you contact our admissions office, they can tell you what the minimum proficiency is. There are various certificates. During COVID, they were accepting Duolingo certificate. I'm not sure if they're still doing that. My last education is higher diploma level 6. Okay, so you would have to go through Dubravka, you'd have to go through a RPL process, which is basically, you know, if you've been working for a couple of years since you got the qualification, well, then the work experience that you got will probably match the equivalent of a level 8. What I would get you to do is to ask you, first of all, to write an essay on a topic, and then ask you to show how you meet the level, how your work experience and your prior education together would meet the level 8 learning outcomes. So it's a process that might take a couple of weeks to go through. But each year we have 2 or 3 people who go through that process. Anna, if you exceed 2 years, okay, so you have to pass each module. You have to pass the first 3 modules to go on and do the second year of the course. Really, we haven't had people fail modules per se, but sometimes what will happen is they'll defer a submission. So, there's a couple of students this year in their final year doing their research project. They've fallen behind due to COVID or family circumstances or medical circumstances or whatever. And in a situation like that, what happens is they will apply for a deferral of submission. Okay. They will, thank you, Ruth. They will say, oh, look, I don't want to submit the project at the end of April. I want to submit it at the end of August. And usually that's okay. Sometimes people will do the first 4 modules and they'll find that they can't finish the research project. And if that happens, you can apply for an exit award and take a postgrad diploma in UX design. So Anna, yeah, you can, if you need more time, you can apply for a deferral of submission. But depending on the circumstances, that may or may not require the payment of additional fees. Whereas so if you're a leading product, I'm not sure what advanced topics you can leverage. So stuff that we might do that might be different to you. I don't know what your research skills are. We try to get people up to a high level of proficiency in terms of doing user research and doing data analysis. Okay, usually that's at a higher level than what people would do in their professional careers. We would also look at stuff like psychology, information architecture, content design, that maybe people haven't done, because they tend to be quite specialized. So if you've done a product design course or a graphic design course, you probably haven't done that kind of stuff. I don't know if that answers your question, Boris. Anybody else, any questions? Doing the, I don't know, would you agree with this, Jennifer? But I always say, like, doing an academic course, it's a bit like doing a driving test. Like, you learn how to drive the car when you're doing your driving test in this country. Anyway, you have to drive the car perfectly. You have to be a really good driver, take the corners really well, not sway out, not clip the corner. You're driving in traffic, you have to be very mindful and looking at all your mirrors and learn how to do things really well. And then once you've got your driving license, you go off and you say, okay, look, I can't be driving like this. I'm in a bit of a rush. I'm going to take this corner or whatever. And doing an academic course is a bit like that. We will go and we will look at the whys and the wherefores of everything that you do. So if you've got experience of doing UX design or product design, we will say to you, okay, why do you do that? Justify why you're doing that. Okay. So we will probe your decision making and your rationale for doing things and try to get you to think about stuff at a deeper level. Doing an MSc, it's not really about like I always say, it's not about the subject area. Like if I was doing one of the other courses area, if you're doing an MSc in digital entrepreneurship, or if you want to do an MSc in film production, a lot of what we would do would be the exact same. Okay. Because what we're actually doing as academics in bringing people up to a master's level is trying to change the way they think. Okay, so that they think about things in a deeper way. I don't know, would you agree, Jennifer?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. It's we're trying to make you analyze things better than you already do. Okay. So the application forms are available on our website. I think the closing date for applications is in it's around early May. When is it? We do 2 rounds of applications. Um, so the closing date for the first round is in early May. The second round will be in August. There's 24 places on the course. We haven't filled the course for the last couple of years. So if you don't get your application in the first round and you put it in the second round, there will probably still be places. I won't say there will be, but there probably will be. So Jody, hi again. The course will run on Wednesday nights in the first year of the course will be Wednesday nights from 6 to 9 and 1 Saturday a month. You can do the Wednesday nights and the 1 Saturday a month online, but you will have an option of attending the Saturdays on campus. The lecturer for the Saturday classes will be on campus, and you can come in and join the lecture in a classroom, or you can join that class online. If you've any more questions, folks, just send me an email. Ruth has put my email into the chat window. If you've got any questions about admissions or fees or language requirements, send it to our admissions team. The digital skill net, let me just get that for you. I'll just get the. If you want more information about the postgrad diploma, I've just put a link to the digital skill net page for that course, and you apply for that postgrad diploma in UX design through the skill net. You don't apply to IIDT directly. Any other questions? Thank you, Ruth. If you have no questions, folks, I'll stop there. Hi, Ethan, you're joining us late, but we're just wrapping up here. If anybody wants to have a chat after this, just send me an email and I can do a separate Teams meeting with you. Okay. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Ruth. I'll hang on here for a few minutes and see if anybody has any questions, but if you want to go, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.